What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? How the D-backs' poor bullpen decision making have tied this team down since I've taken over the podcast, and answering your guys' questions on today's Mailbag Friday, Thursday, I guess whenever you're listening to this podcast.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.diamondportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing how the D-backs' poor bullpen decision-making have tied this team down since I've taken over the podcast in 2020, ranking the D-backs relievers, courtesy of a mailbag Thursday, Friday, whatever day you're listening to this podcast, or answering your guys' questions at the end of this pod. So thank you for all that. Thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms. So please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. I try to go live on YouTube Sunday through Thursday after D-backs games when I can. If you want to know when I go live, hit the bell icon on YouTube or follow me on social media at Creator Thomas 24 for my personal account, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. Quick programming note, no podcast on the 4th of July. I am traveling back to the East Coast. I will actually be at the Subway Series on the 4th of July, soaking in some hot dogs and glizzies. So no podcast on Friday. We'll be back at it next week for you guys. But now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and now let's discuss a little bit about the D-backs bullpen and how the D-backs bullpen decision makers, Mike Hazen and Torey Lovullo, have held this D-backs team back since I've taken over the podcast in 2020, because last night was just a little microcosm. Game 3 against the Giants was a little microcosm of the poor combination of both Mike Hazen and Torey Lovullo when it comes to evaluating and who to play from this D-backs bullpen, because it starts off with the D-backs making a roster move and saying, you know what? We're going to send down Juan Murillo, a guy who has been very good for us in the month of June. Yes, he gave up an earned run recently after having a pretty long scoreless streaks, after having a .96 ERA and 9.1 innings pitched in the month of June, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts. Easily, a top 3 D-backs reliever, if not our second best reliever in the month of June. He throws it hard. He has put away stuff, right? He could throw 98, 99, 100 miles per hour. He feels like kind of like 90%. He feels like diet Justin Martinez almost, especially rookie season Justin Martinez, where he's a little wild. The command needs to be a little bit better, but the strikeout and the strikeout stuff and the overall stuff is just there. But he gets sent down. Despite this D-backs bullpen having nobody, everyone is struggling. We send down Juan Murillo, one of our better relievers, for a guy in Jake Woodford to be signed, who was getting crushed in AAA, who you look at his career ERA, 4.91, immediately comes in, and this is where you bring in Torey Lovullo, because you have to blame Mike Hazen for the poor bullpen evaluating to send Juan Murillo down and signing Jake Woodford, and then Torey Lovullo saying, hey, 8th inning, 1-run ball game. Let's go get the new guy. Yes, Jalen Beeks didn't pitch before, or Kevin Ginkel, but let's go get the new guy who in his career has been horrendous in a divisional game, big wild card and playoff implications, fighting for our own race in the wild card standings, in the playoff standings, go against a team and the Giants has been struggling offensively. Let's just give them a BP pitcher. Like, that's what I don't understand with this D-backs manager and the D-backs front office. When it comes to this bullpen, they have no pulse, no sense whatsoever. Toy Lavello, he leaves guys out there too long. Meanwhile, Mike Hazen just keeps signing random reliever off the streets after random reliever. And all these guys are journeymen who don't have like overwhelming stuff. Like, I would understand if you were signing these guys off the street and they could throw like 98. They had some upside, or they had some like wicked pitch, some weird sidearm delivery. But these are just like normal Joes who just throw 90 miles per hour with like no moving action and just leave meatballs down the middle. It's like, why are we signing these guys? I think since taking over the podcast in 2020, the bullpen has been the biggest D-backs issue. And all you have to do is go back and look at some of the guys that have closed games for the D-backs since 2020. You look at the 2020 team: Yohan Lopez, Hector Rondon, Taylor Clark, Travis Bergen. That was the year the D-backs were trying to compete. Again, COVID-shortened season, but the D-backs were trying to win in 2020. 2021, D-backs won 52 games. Entering the year, the D-backs wanted to be competitive. They were so bad at pitching and bullpen and relieving and closing games that they ended up being a bad team, because when you look at games finished for them that year, Matt Peacock, Stephon Crichton, Taylor Clark again, Brett DeGeis, JB Wendelken, Alex Young, Jake Faria, Yohan Lopez again, Caleb Smith, Riley Smith, Sean Poppin, Humberto Castellanos. Like, the list of bad D-backs relievers going back to 2020 for guys who are closing games and finishing games for the D-backs. 2022, Reyes Maranta. You had and some of the things when you talk about D-backs not being able to evaluate their bullpen, you had Tyler Holton in your bullpen in 2022. He's one of the better relievers now on the Detroit Tigers. He even finished 15th in MVP voting last season, if you could believe that. Remember Oliver Perez? He even finished a game for the D-backs in 2022. He was signed off the streets from the Mexico League. He was horrendous for the D-backs. The amount of guys that the D-backs have tried out in their bullpen that have just been disasters. The Mark Melancons, the Ian Kennedys, the Miguel Castros, the Scott McGuffs, the Chris Davinsky's, the Joaquim Sorias, all these past their prime, washed up, nothing interesting when it comes to their stuff. Like, I don't understand why the D-backs are obsessed with these guys. And it's like, Scott McGuff, we signed him. He was terrible. He was gone for a little bit. Then we brought him back. Nothing changed. But it's like, why did we bring Scott McGuff back once we realized he was terrible the first time around? What was the point of bringing him back again? These D-backs decision makers when it comes to the bullpen, that we need someone else to evaluate, because Mike Hazen, Toy Lavello, they have no idea when it comes to evaluating guys, when it comes to who to leave out there, who to bring in from the pen. We just are absolutely clueless. And I think we need to start bringing in like an AI, Chat GPT, where we just type in a prompt and we say, it's this inning, it's this situation, who should we bring in? Hey, this guy's on the waiver wire. These are his career numbers. Should we sign this guy? Let's just ask AI. Let's just ask a robot, because at this point, Mike Hazen and Toy Lavello have no idea when it comes to evaluating and picking relievers for this D-backs pen. Now we'll rank the D-backs relievers courtesy of Mailbag Friday/Thursday in segment number 2. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Game Time, because we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Game Time's Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And now let's answer some of your guys' questions on today's Mailbag Friday. And the first one is from Dbacks Forever with 4 Rs. They said, can you rank the relievers in the D-backs pen? Because right now it is a who's who in this D-backs bullpen. It is not looking too strong. It has been weathered by injuries. AJ Puk, Justin Martinez, guys truly underperforming this season. And I don't know if there's anyone you trust in this D-backs bullpen. This bullpen is at an all-time low. I think even throughout D-backs franchise history, like I mentioned, I just went through some guys I've taken over, and finished games for the D-backs since 2020. There was at least 1 to 2 to 3 guys every year that I at least really liked. This might be the first year where I'm kind of out on every D-backs reliever. Like Kyle Backus was probably my favorite right now, but do I think he's really like elite? He's having a good season, but I don't trust him as much as I've trusted some of the other really good relievers in the past. I definitely don't trust Shelby Miller, despite the 2 ERA, the sub 1 whip, the almost double-digit strikeouts per 9. I do not like the season Shelby Miller's having. So let's rank these D-backs relievers because it is not looking so pretty right now. And bottom of my list is obviously Jake Woodford after what he did in his debut. He's only 28 years old, but this guy, he hasn't been good in his career. Even in AAA this season before coming to the D-backs, he had a 4.99 ERA. He had over 10 hits per 9 in AAA between the Yankees and the Cubs. And it's like, I don't know what the D-backs saw in this guy. He has a career 1.4 whip, career strikeouts per 9 under 6. Like, he doesn't strike out people. He gives up a ton of hits. He gives up a decent amount of walks. He has a pretty high home run rate, and he has a terrible ERA. Sometimes you don't have to look at the advanced stats. I don't always have to see the spin rate and the velocity on your pitches, where you like to leave in the zone. Sometimes I just have to look at ERA, whip, hit rate, home run rate, strikeout rate, walk rate. Like, sometimes that's all you need to look at. And for Jake Woodford, the numbers scream. He is not a good reliever, and we saw that in his debut with Arizona Diamondbacks. Number 2 on my list is Anthony DeSclafani, and he might be getting moved up soon because he didn't look too bad too recently, but DeSclafani's still not high on my list. He mostly gets used in blowouts. Potentially could have 2 saves for the D-backs right now if we put him in an inning earlier in his most recent outing. But DeSclafani right now being used as a nice long reliever. When we're up 6 runs and we need to get 2 or 3 innings, that's when you bring in DeSclafani. Do not want to see him in any high leverage moments. So far, the numbers for him don't look terrible. 5 earned runs in 9 innings pitched for a 4.82 ERA. That's better than most people on this D-backs team. And so we'll see moving forward if he could move up my ranking list. I think there's potential for that to happen because of how bad this D-backs bullpen is. But right now, I would put DeSclafani second to last on my list. Historically, I've never been a huge fan of him, even in his prime when he was a starter. I guess he was good in San Fran a few years ago, but that was some time ago now. Number 6, I think, is Ryan Thompson. I just don't trust him at all. I just feel like when he comes in, he's got 4.6 ERA, not even the worst on the team, but the 1.5 whip is bad. The hits per 9 is bad. The walk rate is bad. And it just feels like hitters are so comfortable against him. He's a guy that doesn't throw hard. He's got the weird delivery, but he's trying to get ground balls. He's not going to be afraid to pitch to contact. And when it doesn't work out, it's a lot of loud outs. It's a lot of hard contact. And you just haven't been able to trust him at all in high leverage moments this year. It feels like he always gives up the lead, or he's never able to preserve the lead or inherited runners. And so Ryan Thompson, he's going to be 6th on my list. 5th on my list, I'm going to have Jalen Beeks, which might sound kind of surprising, but Jalen Beeks at this point is a worse ERA than Ryan Thompson. And even when he had a good ERA, it always felt like fool's gold because this is a guy who I do not trust to get a shutdown inning when there's runners on. It feels like if there's runners on and Beeks is coming out the pen, those runners are going to score. I do not trust Beeks to preserve those leads whatsoever, and the numbers back it up this season. He is top 2 on this D-backs team in inherited runner scoring in 2025. The walk rate is going in the wrong direction. The ERA is going in the wrong direction, and it feels like he's regressing to the mean after having that fantastic start to the season. Feels like Jalen Beeks is starting to come back to earth a little bit. So I have him number 5 on my list, and there's potential for him to move down, but also if he looks like the guy that we saw those first 5 weeks of the season, there's also potential for him to move up. Number 4 might be kind of crazy, but I do think he's heating up a little bit. I got Kevin Ginkel as my number 4 guy. I also think there's a little bit of bias with Kevin Ginkel because we know how good Ginkel can be. He's been worse than any reliever I just named on this list so far in 2025, but I don't care. I believe in Ginkel. He's given up 1 earned run in his last 5 outings, and I think he's just starting to look a little bit better. He's a guy who historically has started slow in the beginning of the season. Not ever this slow before. This is an all-time bad start by Kevin Ginkel. But right now, career high strikeout rate, if you could believe that. I think there's still potential for Ginkel to turn it around. I still believe in the talent. I still believe in his stuff. It's been a bad start to 2025 for him, but I still think he can turn it around. I still look at him as a major X factor in this D-backs bullpen. And the guy where if he turns it around, he will be our best reliever. I trust him more than anybody else when he's right. But there's current point, he hasn't been right. So you have to put him 4th on the list. Number 3 might sound kind of crazy, but from what I've seen so far, how can it not be John Curtis, right? John Curtis is not overwhelming at all. Does not have super impressive stuff, but what we've seen out the D-backs so far in 2025, like it's kind of disgustingly, you have to put John Curtis here. Like I'm very reluctant to do it, but it's like, who else do you have? He's pitched 2 innings and he's got 0 earned runs. I'm like, that's about as good as you could do in this D-backs, bullpen and in a D-backs uniform. And he got some quick outs in his debut. And it was like, wait, maybe if we went to Curtis instead of Jalen Beeks, maybe we could have won that game. That was a podcast for another day. John Curtis, I still don't believe in him long term, but maybe he could be a little spark in the pan, give us a little bit of juice. He's not a guy that's going to go out there, overpower you in 99, nothing like that. But if he could just be a guy that lives on the edges and knows how to and can locate his pitches, that's all you really need. Kyle Backus, I think you have to put him number 2 in this D-backs bullpen. And again, most years Backus probably wouldn't be this high. It would be like, oh my God, Backus. Kind of like how we viewed maybe like a Kyle Nelson some years. It was like, oh, this is like your 4th or 5th best reliever. Like that's very good for the D-backs. That makes us feel pretty good. Kyle Backus, if he was our 5th best reliever or like our 2nd lefty behind AJ Puck, that would make me feel pretty good. But considering Backus is arguably our best reliever as a rookie, makes me a little bit more nervous, but he's been very good. Sub 0.9 whip, double-digit strikeouts per 9, a 108 ERA. He's a sinker ball pitcher, needs to raise that ground ball rate, but he's been very impressive for the D-backs in 2025. And someone that looks like a keeper going forward, but knowing Arizona, he'll probably get called down in the next couple of weeks for some random guy in street clothes. So can't wait to see where Backus goes next. Then finally, that leaves Shelby Miller, who, again, I have not been impressed with in 2025, but considering the options and considering his stats, I mean, I do have to put him number 1. He's got a 2 ERA in 35 innings pitched. He's our closer going forward. I do not trust him in closing or save situations, considering he's like he blows half his save opportunities. So I do not trust him in those really big high leverage situations. But there's nobody else in this D-backs pen. And if you told me name one guy from the pen, bases loaded, 2 outs, and you have to bring in somebody to save the game, Shelby Miller is probably the guy you want to call on because there's just nobody else in this D-backs bullpen. So unfortunately, D-backs ranking goes like this. From the top, Shelby Miller, Kyle Backus, John Curtis, Kevin Ginkel, Jalen Beeks, Ryan Thompson, Anthony Del Scalfani, and then Jake Woodford. Now we'll answer a few more of your guys' questions in segment number 3. But first, I want to talk to you guys about Supply House because get the supplies you need from a site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, and let's answer a few more of your guys' questions for today's podcast. The next one is Suarez112. They said, "Who do you think lasts longer with the D-backs, Pavin Smith or Torey Lovello?" I think this is a pretty fun question because the D-backs seem to be drunk with Pavin Smith. I get it; he does crush right-handed pitching. As bad as the numbers look over the last 5-6 weeks, when you look at his slash line, he still does good against right-handed pitching during that time. And so that is why the D-backs are so obsessed with him and keeping him around, because he does do well against righties. Where I disagree is batting him third every single day with a man who strikes out literally a third of the time. Him batting third for your team just doesn't make any sense. Like when he hits a home run or has a double, it is sweet, but that should be like your seventh hitter in your lineup, your eighth hitter, not your number three hitter. The number three hitter is reserved for someone who's arguably game changer, dynamic in your lineup. When it's when it's Marte, Carroll, Perdomo, that's a great 1, 2, 3. I'm even pro putting Gurriel back in that number three slot with the way he's been swinging the bat. But Pavin Smith, his plate discipline just isn't good enough. And I like someone who has a good approach, plate discipline in that number three slot. And so the D-backs are obsessed with Pavin because they drafted him in the first round, 7th overall, first draft pick in the Mike Hazen era. And so they want Pavin Smith to work out. He has some talent just because he does well against right-handed pitching, but defensively, he's below average. Offensively, I mean, he's probably below average if he just a platoon first base DH. That's probably not the greatest Major League Baseball player, right? How many guys are carrying around platoon first baseman who can't actually feel their position? Like no one else is carrying a guy like that on their roster in Major League Baseball. But the D-backs are obsessed with Pavin. He's all right. He's a friend of the pod, so we have immense respect for Pavin Smith. I just think overall there are probably better options, but if you're asking me who lasts longer between him and Torey Lovello, I would probably lean Torey Lovello because Lovello is going to last as long as Mike Hazen lasts, because those are boys, and I just think they're going to be forever tied together. I don't think it matters how many losing seasons, how many September collapses, how much Ken Kendrick spends on this team and they underperform. As long as Mike Hazen is employed and getting paychecks from Ken Kendrick, Torey Lovello will also get paychecks from Mike Hazen and Ken Kendrick. I don't think those two are going anywhere. I think they're tied at the hip. Torey Lovello, I make the argument D-backs might be better with a different manager. I never like to call for anyone's job. I never think anyone should get fired. But watching this D-backs team, I can't deny that there's a lot of decisions by their manager where I'm like, I don't know if I would make that move. I don't know if I would agree with that decision. And so who's going to last longer between Pavin and Lovello? It's probably Lovello because it's a lot easier to move a guy like Pavin Smith, even though you can fire Lovello tomorrow and that's it. It's probably easier to move off a guy like Pavin Smith, send him somewhere else, do something with him, I don't know, than a guy like Torey Lovello, because Lovello is just so tied to Mike Hazen. You have to get rid of Mike Hazen if you want to get rid of Torey Lovello. So I would say Torey Lovello would last longer. Then one final question. Do you think Ketel Marte can be the best position player in D-backs franchise history? That is by Marte Lover 997. And fun question. I definitely think he can be. I would still say Gonzo and Paul Goldschmidt are higher on the list all time in D-backs franchise rankings. But you look at the offensive stats, and like Ketel Marte is like 2 or 3 in pretty much everything. He's number 2 behind Goldie in offensive WAR all time. You look at games played, Ketel Marte is number 3 behind Goldie and Gonzo. You look at runs scored, Ketel Marte is number 3. You look at hits, Ketel Marte is number 3. You look at total bases, Ketel Marte is number 3. Look at home runs, Ketel Marte is number 3. You look at walks, Ketel Marte is number 3. RBIs, Ketel Marte is number 3. So basically, any offensive category you look at, Ketel Marte is going to be number 2 or number 3 in it, and he's going to be behind either Gonzo or Paul Goldschmidt. Do I think the peaks of Ketel Marte is higher than the peaks of Gonzo or Goldie? Probably not. I think Goldie's 7, 8 years with the D-backs was more consistent year to year and had higher peaks than Ketel Marte. I think Gonzo as well. Plus, Gonzo got the World Series. And so right now, Gonzo's number 1. Goldie, I think, is number 2. Ketel's number 3. Gonzo's got, an MVP finish, didn't win it, but finished top 3 in MVP voting, plus the World Series and the 57 home run season. Goldie had 8 years of just sustained excellence. Now, Ketel, in the next few seasons, when he surpasses both of those guys, I would like to think Ketel can move up these franchise rankings. I think I would put him ahead of Goldie in 3 more years when he passes Goldie in most stats. But I think I would still put him behind Gonzo because Gonzo does have the only ring of any Phoenix athlete, of the 4 major sports teams. And so Gonzo would still be number 1. But if Ketel can play a few more seasons, be number 1 in all the rankings, and deliver a championship for the D-backs, he has an appearance and gets a ring, plus he's the all-time franchise leader in stats, then I think you could say Ketel Marte would be number 1 in the D-backs franchise ranking for position players. But also, you can't forget Corbin Carroll is in the building, and he's locked up for the next decade. He's not going anywhere, so it's going to be a great battle between these two for who should be the all-time Mr. D-back. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Again, come back next week. No podcast tomorrow as we're taking advantage of the 4th of July. I will be on the East Coast watching the Subway Series, going to the game. So look for me on TV because I'll be just a few rows behind home plate. That's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back next week for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Dose.